Hey everybody, this is Omar here, your knife of the party guy, formerly your knife of the party guy, now your host of Edge of South Africa. And today I wanted to showcase a knife maker who's kind of underrated, definitely one of my favorite knife makers of all time, Clyde Challenor. Why he's underrated, nobody really seems to know. More than likely, probably just because he sort of promotes CNC machining, which I don't know if it's a popular way of making knives or not, but his concept is to use CNC machining for the actual, excuse me, creation of the actual model of the knife. As you see here in two examples, I only have two knives from him. This is his latest model, which is the Viper. This one is with the Damascus blade, and it's a frame lock, and the inlays on the knife are very, very different than the inlays that he does now. If you look on his Instagram channel, you'll see that his inlays are more of like a coffin shape. This is more of the inlays that he used to do, where it would wrap around the bolster there. In any case, yeah, this is really just a fantastic knife. Really great action. He's always got the action tuned in perfectly on all of his knives. Something that's not really mentioned enough is also his attention to detail. If you take a look at this knife, you can see that, everything on it is pretty much pristine. And a good part of that is because of the CNC machining. Because the CNC machining pretty much takes care of the actual basic model of the knife, he can put all of his concentration on all of the details and make it perfect. As you can see, he's got these really very, very smooth hardware, incredibly smooth. I mean, you can't even really feel the difference between the titanium on this part of the knife and the titanium on the on the pivot there. It is so flat, incredibly flat. And of course, the standoff, he does the same exact thing. Very, very, very detailed on that. Even down to these little screws that he puts that sort of sinks in the inlays. I mean, they're super duper polished on there. Really very nice. So Clyde Challenor is the knife builder in this scenario. So he builds the knives, and the guy that designs the knife is a gentleman named Francois Nel. He's been working with Francois Nel as his designer probably for about, I'm going to say, probably about 9 years now. The two of them have been working together. He's had quite a few models. This one here is one that he no longer makes. This is the Raptor. He discontinued this 2 years ago. He no longer makes it anymore. He began to realize people like to have smaller knives. He also had a smaller version of the Raptor called the Talon, same exact knife, but smaller. So Clyde Challenor is a knife maker who works with, again, Francois Nel, who designs the knife, and then he builds it and brings Francois Nel's design to life. Actually puts it out as a product so people can hold it, they can see it. You can actually feel the art, not just see the knife as a design. So he's the one that's actually responsible for building the knife and bringing it to life. Francois Nel's design in both cases. He also works with two other people. that are under him who basically serve, I'm going to say, as they do serve more than his sort of assembly, sort of his assembling crew, because they're the ones that put the knife together, and then when they're finished putting the knife together, it goes through Clyde Challenor's eyes, and it's his he has the final say as far as whether or not the product goes out to a customer. So yeah, we have Clyde Challenor at the center of this product, and he is really the one that is responsible for the final product that you get when you order from him. He is a part-time knife maker. He's been part-time now for about 8 years, still not doing it full-time. CNC machining. And I think that that's probably why Clyde Challenor doesn't get the credit that he deserves, because a lot of the made by hand concept really means made by hand, whereas Clyde Challenor uses CNC machining to put his knives together. Made by hand basically is to the extreme. And I think Clyde Challenor probably challenges the notion that is that really all necessary to create an amazing product, or at least an amazing piece of artwork. You can still come up with an amazing knife and not have to do everything completely by hand. That's basically his theory, and a lot of us that have bought his knives, in the end, we found really, really happy with the product overall. He does have some limitations as a knife maker. He can't do special, like, sort of like if you wanted like a Damascus pocket clip, he can't do that. So things like that, that people would like to often request when you're dealing with a person that makes knives by hand. You can't do that with someone that's CNC machining. Very, very limited in that way. But to bring things back up in his favor, to be fair, no one no one customer that I know that orders knives from him have had a product that they were not happy with. I mean, that's saying something. He puts a lot of pride into the detail of all of his work and all of his knives. You can still also come up with a one of a kind hand, with a one of a kind knife, even though it's not made by hand. You can still do a one of a kind. I mean, a perfect example of this is the inlays on this knife. This is the only knife, Viper, second generation released, with this shaped inlay. If you go on his Instagram site and you check him out, you will see that all of his knives have the inlay now have a coffin shape on it. And actually, my next knife from him is going to have that same coffin shape. And he's done a couple of other special things for me on that knife, and I really can't wait to get that one so I can do a video on that. He has, in all of his knives, he's got the action tuned in perfectly. Really, really beautiful work. And also the centering. I don't know anyone that does centering better than Clyde Challenor. I marvel at that. I mean, because centering is not an easy thing to do. But Clyde Challenor is able to do it effortlessly. One of the things that makes his knives unique is his jimping. If you take a look at his jimping, you've got these sort of wide spaces on the knife, and then as you go up and up and up and up, and it gets thinner and thinner until it's almost like non-existent. I kind of like that. That's a really, really hard detail to do, even if you're CNC machining that on the blade there. We've got a really beautiful Damascus blade cut on that. Really, really very, very nice. This is sort of his signature, these sort of slash marks on there. Really fantastic work. He's really good with sort of things like where because he can't do fancy inlays. So what he'll do is he'll come up with an interesting design where he's got these sort of three slash marks here. And if you take a look at the slash marks, they are perfectly even with the actual frame lock itself. So even when it disengages, you don't see that that's off in any way when you disengage it. It's still perfectly in sync with the actual frame lock itself. So I mean that takes some serious machining. That takes skill and stuff like that. That's what gets lost in the concept of CNC machining. A lot of people think they just shove these things through a machine and you get them and you come out with a knife on the other end. What a lot of people don't realize is these slash marks on my knife. They are perfectly a mirror image opposite of the frame lock side. And a lot of people don't see that. I mean, they don't really appreciate that. That's one of the things about collecting knives is that you have to kind of realize, are you more of a tool knife collector or an art knife collector? And because I know there's a lot of work that gets put into these knives that shows off the skills of the knife maker, I'm more of an art knife collector. It doesn't mean that I don't use the knives that I own. As far as you guys can see, I have been using it because take a look at the finish on mine. It's been worn. I'm actually going to have Clyde Challenor ship back to Clyde Challenor and have him refinish that and make it like it was brand new. So this sort of maze design on the Raptors, the same concept. One thing people don't realize is that this maze design, not only is it, not only did he, because he made about 50 of these knives, these Raptors, but all 50 of these designs, okay, front and back are completely different. They're all one of a kinds, completely different. No two are exactly the same on either side of the knife, and amongst all the 50 of the knives, none of them are exactly the same. So you're still getting a one of a kind knife. That's one of the challenges that CNC machining has, is that Clyde Challenor has to try to figure out in his own way, how can I make one-of-a-kind handmade knives using CNC machining? Well, these patterns on the knife is one way that he can do that. Reshaping the inlays is one way he can do that, to make up for the fact that he can't give you, if you wanted, a black Damascus pocket clip or maybe some sort of special shaped pocket clip. He just can't do that because of the because of the limitations of CNC machine, but that doesn't mean that he can't give you a one-of-a-kind handmade knife. He can still do that in his own way. And I think as a result, it's made him even more creative as a knife maker. And you're going to see that when I get my new Viper. I believe it's probably going to be coming in about a month. You're going to see how creative he gets with the concept of one of a kind. So Clyde Challenor is definitely a knife maker that goes his own way, and he's found success in his own way. The fact that a lot of made-by-hand purists don't get that or can't appreciate that, because that's a challenge for him as a knife maker. He has to sit there and say, you know what, I'm a CNC machine guy, but I do all the details just like you guys do, by hand. Nothing leaves my factory unless it's to my approval and unless it's perfect. That's pretty much what Clyde Challenor lives by when he makes each and every one of his knives, and the day-to-day concentration it would take to come up with a one-of-a-kind handmade piece and give a customer that same satisfaction is something that he does day in, day out, and I think he should be admired for it. And if you buy a knife from him, you will see that. You will learn to appreciate that, like I have. He's really just a super all fantastic guy. He works with all kinds of customers. I mean, he gets very personal with his customers, probably in a way that a lot of other knife makers probably don't. But that's saying something about him. He makes it a personal investment. You come to me to make a knife, I'm going to give you the best experience overall. I'm not just going to give you a knife. When I give you one of my knives, you're going to be getting me on that knife. And a lot of us who buy knives from him really do appreciate all the work that he puts into these works of art that he has. So I think, in my own opinion, I think Clyde Challenor really needs to just continue doing what he's doing and not listen to any of the naysayers or anyone that says that, Clyde Challenor is good, but, he does CNC machining. That doesn't have to be seen as a negative. That should be seen as a positive because he's decided to go this route. He is now challenged to try to find a way to satisfy those liner lot, satisfy those knife makers that who want that one of a kind handmade experience, even though he doesn't make knives by hand. But what Clyde Challenor expresses is that it doesn't matter whether or not you make a knife by hand or whether or not you make a knife by CNC machining. You really have to stand by the product whichever way you go. I mean, case in point, Chris Reeve, for example, he gets raves over his knives and he CNC machines, but yet people look at him opposite. They actually kind of put him way up on a pedestal, not only for making CNC machining knives, but also, making knives the way he wants to make them. Whereas here we have Clyde Challenor, who is willing to offer a customer one of a kind experience, and he's also willing to work with the customer. Unlike Chris Reeve, if you buy one of his knives and you don't like it, then the only option you have is to not buy from him again, because you don't like Chris Reeve's style of making knives. Even though Chris Reeve makes a superior product, he doesn't make his knives personal for each and every customer. Whereas someone like Clyde Challenor, who does do CNC machining, he will cater to you. I got to be honest, if he likes you, and if he finds you're just as creative as he is, and you're really into the product itself, like he is, and he has and he can tell that you have an eye for knife collecting, and you're educated enough to understand what it is that you want, he's willing to work with you. You know, and for that, I think Clyde Challenor deserves all the recognition. Uh, he should, he should get more than what he deserves because he's doing something in a way that a lot of other knife makers probably, would kind of feel, I don't want to say lost, but they wouldn't be as comfortable making knives in this fashion, knowing that he's going to have to go up against the likes of, say, Ericus Blumeris and, Andre Thorburn and even Des Horn, guys that do knives completely by hand. But there are some positives as well. Because he does do CNC machining, you're probably going to get your knife a lot faster than someone that makes their knives by hand. Another thing with Clyde Challenor is that he doesn't take giant bulks of orders. As far as I understand it, Clyde Challenor will probably open his books to say anywhere between 15 to only 10 people. And then he'll discuss with you what it is that you want on your knife and how you want your knife to look. And generally, he works with you as far as like what kind of inlays you want on it. How do you want the knife to, is there anything else you want on the knife? Like what color inlays you'd like on there? The things that he would discuss with you, you never know what he's going to come up with. You just kind of have to talk to him, and he'll give you, that personal experience that you're looking for. Especially if you're if you're going to be dealing with him and asking for a one of a kind handmade piece, because he's just as excited to make those as he is, say, making just a regular production piece that he normally does. And, he's just a real sort of stand up guy. And for whatever reason, he's always been alone in the knife world. But still, he comes up with the product, and that satisfies. So, if you're looking for a really good frame lock and you want to really, not just a good knife, but a good experience overall, go on Instagram, talk with Clyde Challenor. He'll be more than happy to discuss with you what he has. Basically, at this point in time, he's only got one model out. The Raptor is no longer in production. A little background on Clyde Challenor. Just before the pandemic, we're going back about 3 years, at the beginning when he was at his height, he was pretty much at his height for about, I'm going to say probably about 4 years. And then he had, some personal things that he was going through at the time, and he had to stop making knives for a short time, but now he's back. And as a fresh start, when he came back, I believe he came back in, is it 2021, I think, when he came back, or maybe late 2020 when he decided to come back. It was just before, it was like right around the time of the pandemic. Like, in other words, he had full production for like 4 or 5 months, and then the pandemic hit and everything got shut down. But then he came back again and began producing. He only had this one model out, but it was actually kind of kismet that happened, because he could focus on just creating this one knife coming back, the Viper, and just recreating it, reimagining it. So we're now catching Clyde Challenor at the second stage of his creativity, because all of his other knives, like this one here, the Raptor, he discontinued this model. He discontinued the Talon. But I do have some news, because by the beginning of next year, or maybe the end of this year, if you check out Instagram, he is in the works with Francois Nell to create a smaller version of the Viper, which is, I believe it's, the whole knife, I believe, would be like about the size of this handle, maybe with the blade sticking out about that much, maybe 2.3 inch blade or whatever it's going to be. I know it's a smaller version of the Viper, and he's calling it the Warthog. And I'm kind of happy about that, because I've been promised the very first one. So, I can't really wait to see that in production. I'm also can't wait to get my second Viper, which is coming very, very soon. I believe it's coming in probably in about 3 weeks to about a month. I've been sort of saving up for that one, so I really can't wait. And who knows what Clyde Challenor is going to be doing next, because I'm pretty sure he's not just going to have two models, the Viper and the Warthog. He's going to have to come up with a third model, maybe a medium-sized model, because one of the things that Clyde Challenor does, that and in working with Francois Nell, is coming up with a knife. I forgot to mention this in the video also, is how he comes up with a knife, a full-size knife that's sort of compact and small, because this is a full-size 3.5 inch blade, and yet it seems more like a 3.1, just because the handle is so compact. That's another thing too, is that Francois Nell and Clyde Challenor worked out together these fantastic ergonomics. This is the only frame lock that I own, along with the Raptor. And this is another thing that's not really mentioned enough about Clyde Challenor, is that his ergonomics are impeccable. When you hold his knives, for use, they practically melt in your hand. I don't know, they really thought out how the knife will wrap around your fingers and how you're going to hold the knife. That's a huge plus. And because it's so comfortable, I can't help but wonder, maybe it's because Clyde Challenor is so skilled in CNC machining that he's able to give you that that sort of experience in your hand, because this is really comfortable. There are like zero hot spots, even with the pocket clip when I'm holding it. And when I mean holding it, I mean literally just grabbing and holding real super tight. There's no pain at all, no hot spots, no uncomfortableness. So again, CNC machining, Clyde Challenor making full use of that in his knife making. And you can pretty much expect that all of his models are going to do that. That's just a basic with him. The knife has to feel overly comfortable in your hand when you're using it. And to, I don't know of any other knife maker that offers that. Hands down, he's the best at it. I think he really is the best at it. I mean, the three things that really impress me about Clyde Challenor as far as the overall physical product of the knife is the ergonomics, his overly attention to detail with these polished screws and these flats, the flat hardware where you can't even feel that. I mean, I don't know what the hell he's doing. It's really nice and super smooth. The fact that the inlays are all the way sunken in, you think it's all one piece, and really it's not. So his attention to detail puts him out on top each and every time he makes a knife. And if it delays your knife, it delays your knife. He's more than happy to, contact you and let you know it's probably going to be a little bit longer because I want to make this knife exactly perfect when you buy it. So there's a lot of pride on the line for a man like Clyde Challenor. I don't know of any other knife maker that expresses that. And maybe it's me. Maybe, I think maybe it's like that for him because he doesn't get the credit that he deserves and he's starving for that credit. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he just keeps making these knives as perfect as he can, and the hell with all the naysayers. And if that's the way Clyde Challenor is, I'm going to have to give him, a good, clap on that one. Hands, he deserves that at least, so. It's so, he's saying, well, I don't really care what other people think about the fact that I don't make knives by hand. I'm still giving you an awesome product each and every time. So, one of the things that Clyde Challenor does is that he's also constantly changing the look of his knives. This is his old hardware on his Raptor here. It's got sort of this sort of cross thing. He did this purposely at the time because you don't need any special tools. That was one of the things too, was that Clyde Challenor wanted to make sure that if he wanted to take his knife apart, maybe for cleaning or for whatever reason, that you want to take it apart. Most people would take it apart for cleaning, maybe fine tuning yourself, whatever. He wanted you to make sure you could take the knife apart, so he came up with these screws here. They're still aesthetically pretty on this end with the cross, but you don't need a special tool. You can just use a regular flathead screwdriver on that. Well, with the Viper, it's a little funny story, and I've told this story many times. He's had customers using the wrong screwdriver to take apart his knife, and they would use the wrong screwdriver, and then they would send it back to him, and he'd have to redo the screws all over again. And I think he told me that quite a few times they were using the so wrong flathead screwdriver size that a lot of his screws came back like swastikas, which I thought was funny. So, to show you what kind of a sense of humor Clyde Challenor has, if you take a look at his screws now, there's nothing you can take apart there. He's just kind of like saying, he's kind of pretty much saying, okay, guys, go ahead. You can still take my knife apart without using special tools, but try and mess with that. And I think that's kind of funny that he did that. So, but again, you don't need special tools. I mean, basically, if you have like a regular, I think that's like a Phillips head screw on there, but pretty much you could, use a regular knife tool to take that apart. And, you'll find that the perfectly in sync screw here actually has a mount in there that's about this. Like, if I could do it with my finger, if you can visualize. In other words, the screw is sort of larger on the aesthetic part, but underneath it's real tiny. So all you'd have to do is just stick this screw in there and then tighten it up, and then it would just fall right into place because it's perfectly in sync with the titanium. I don't know if I explained that correctly. But if you ever buy a Clyde Challenor knife and you decide you want to take his knife apart, you'll see what I'm talking about. So, yeah, I mean, so he does things like that where he gets really, really creative in that way. So, in any case, that's all I have to say about Clyde Challenor's work. I just think he's very underrated. He puts out a fantastic product. And, like I've said before, one of the things that I'm a stickler about that makes me absolutely nuts as a knife collector is when and it's always one of the first things I look at, is when the knife is not perfectly centered. And as you can see, Clyde Challenor, man, he just does it so beautifully. Something as insignificant as centering got my attention. And it's because of that, things like that. I know when I get my knife from him, I'm probably not even going to have to bother to look at it anymore. And I think one of the main reasons with that is the fact that Clyde Challenor used to be a knife collector. He knows all the things that all of us as customers look at when we get our knives, and he really, really makes sure that that's basic with each and every knife. We're not going to gripe about those things. That we normally would gripe about, with other knife makers possibly. So it's just something to think about, the fact that he is you, and if you were a knife maker, you would be him. He would be looking at all these little things that we kind of gripe about when we get knives made. So, I think that's just a plus. So I'm going to go ahead and close my video with that. I really didn't want to do any, share anything. I didn't talk much about any of the knives, but both these knives actually have videos on them already. And for this one here, like I said, I'm getting a new one coming next month. So I'll be doing a full review on that one, as if though, for those of you that never saw the review on this one. But if you want to check out the review on this one, you're more than welcome to. It's on my channel. Just look up Clyde Challenor Viper. It's there. And you'll get to see the knife before I ruin the finish. That makes me cry. That balls are all worn off. I wish I didn't do that. But with my next knife, he's doing something super special for me, and I really appreciate it. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I get the knife in about a month. In the meantime, Clyde Challenor knives, or Clyde Challenor Customs, CC&C. And actually, CC&C Customs means something else. I can't remember what, but I just can't really remember what that stands for, because there used to be someone else, because it wasn't CCC, it used to be CCCK, and then I think that guy left. So now it's just CCC, and most of us interpret that as Clyde Challenor Customs, but really it means something else, and I'm gonna have to ask him what that means, because I don't remember what those three letters stand for. It just kind of happens to be CCC Clyde Challenor Customs. It just kind of matches perfectly. But in any case, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Clyde Challenor, part-time knife maker in South Africa, working with Francois Nel as the designer. Those two are going full-on together, making and creating knives. Who knows what else they're going to come up with in the future. I know they're going to have more than just 2 models that are coming up, because you need to have more than at least 1 or 2. So I'm assuming there's probably going to be a 3rd model. And he did, when I talked with him, he did say there's going to be more models, but how many more models, I don't know. That's going to be up to him. But those of us that are Clyde Challenor fanatics, we really cannot wait. If you want to know more about Clyde Challenor, check out Epic Snuggle Bunny's channel. He's owned like 8 of Clyde Challenor's knives. I mean, it's just ridiculous, including his early versions. The Talon, I believe the M4K he had, and Hornet, which was a Another knife model that I'm hoping he's going to bring back, that would be more like a medium-sized knife. Be kind of interesting to see how that would come up against this one, because this one already looks like a medium-sized knife, but it's not. It's a full-size 3.5-inch blade. So, yeah. So there you have it, Clyde Challenor. From South Africa, CNC machine guy, brilliant knife maker. I love his stuff. Does fantastic work. I don't have any gripes, and everyone that's bought a knife from him have zero gripes. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and close out this channel. Again, this is Omar coming at you from edge of South Africa. I still have to get used to saying my own channel name. So this is Omar. Signing off from edge of South Africa, hoping you'll find a Clyde Challenor in your collection. In fact, if you've never bought a custom knife, he's a beautiful place to start. If you want to get your very first custom, check out Clyde Challenor. Talk to him. You're going to be very, very, very happy with what you get from him. I just marvel at his work. Always. Also, he's got a really nice, I don't know if you guys can see that, but he's got a really nice insignia or logo. He's got like this sword with the triple C. I kind of like that. It's kind of cool. Some of these, insignias or logos, they don't look as cool, but his is real cool. And, it's just kind of, it's kind of nice. Really like that. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on my next video. This was sort of one that was not planned, but, I'm kind of glad that I did it anyway. Check him out, Clyde Challenor Customs. Thank you so much for watching. Omar, Edge of South Africa. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys have a fantastic Saturday evening.